So good day and how you doing? My name is Christian Lander. Thank you for taking the time out to join me here today. I'm generally humbled by your audience, truly I am. And today we're going to be talking about a hot-lipped topic, and that is certainly on the minds of many people across all the British Isles, and that is whether we choose to stay in the EU or then choose to leave. This is known as the Brexit, and this is exactly what we're going to be talking about today. So much so the government has spent £2.3 million on producing these leaflets that were sent through the doors of every every household in the UK to learn more about why, in their view, we should stay in the European Union. So what we're going to be doing, we're going to be going through this leaflet. Now you may have noticed I actually had two leaflets, and one is a spread the cost, buy it as you view, that you may throw away. Now why is that important? Because there's something happened with these leaflets, okay? Because my main one have thrown this away, but hidden inside this leaflet, in fact, was two more political messages. In fact, there was this one, and there was this one, and they were hidden inside this. Now, whether this was done intentionally by the postman or the post office, or whether they just choose to pack them that way as they put them through doors, I don't know. I even heard a story that many postmen were actually going to put this in the bin instead of delivering it. But anyway, here we are. This is where we are today, and of course on Thursday the 23rd of June, everyone across the UK gets to vote whether we decide as a nation, and as actually a collection of nations, in fact if you consider Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland to be so, whether we choose to stay in the EU. So let's have a browse through this leaflet and see what the current Conservative government have to say. Now, the Conservative government, when they came into power in the last general election, in fact it was part of their manifesto to make sure that before they left, they gave us a referendum. So let's have a look through and see what it has to say. So it says here, the UK has secured special status in our reformed EU, that we will not join the euro, that we have control of our own borders, and the UK will not be part of European political integration. And there will be tough new restrictions on access to a welfare system for new EU migrants. And there will be a commitment to reduce EU red tape. Now, a news story that came out today, or maybe even yesterday, that, in fact, I can see if I can bring it up, in fact, that it says that the European Union, the kind of chiefs of that said perhaps they've been interfering with the in and out life of the general populace of all the European Union, perhaps too much, and they should step back from their interfering ways. And perhaps I'm paraphrasing a bit, but I'll bring the story up and I'll show you in just a second on screen. So, the government believes the UK should remain in the EU. This leaflet sets out the facts and explains why they believe so. That, is quite a fair point. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's see what they have to say. Because a lot of people, of course, there's still the whole Thatcher hate thing going on in the UK. People obviously are very angry about the migrant crisis coming into the UK. They feel very much threatened, our way of life being threatened here. They feel that the EU is dominating in their life a bit too much, and people literally are sick and tired of it and all want out. But I guess if we don't listen, many people won't know, and some people, of course, aren't politically motivated or politically knowledgeable about to want to know, and they just can't wear out without reading this. But we are going to give them the benefit of the doubt. We are going to continue reading through this and see what the government has to say. It says here a stronger economy. And so the UK is in the EU, the UK is the biggest trading partner. EU countries buy 44% of everything we sell abroad, from everything from cars to insurance. It says remaining in the EU guarantees our full access to the single market. By contrast, leaving opens that up to a lot of uncertainty and a lot of risk. That is absolutely true. That cannot be, underestimated. The UK's single market has 500 million customers and an economy 5 times the large of the UK. So they're saying basically the European Union as a whole has much more money, and therefore if we need to trade with them, that's how we bring income into our country. So the single market makes it easier and cheaper for UK companies to sell products outside of the UK and creating jobs, therefore, as a result. Being inside the euro also makes it attractive for companies to invest in the UK, meaning more jobs, and over the last decade, foreign companies have invested £540 billion in the UK, and that is equivalent of £148 million coming into the UK every day. And it talks about the UK industries here as well. and the jobs that are within that role. So in aerospace, there's 110,000 jobs. Chemical and pharmaceutical, financial services, making over 1 million jobs. Food manufacturing, 373,000 jobs. IT and telecoms, which is by far one of our largest exports, 1.364 million. And transport, 1,065,000 jobs. So shares of these exports are going to the EU. So these jobs are intricately linked within our country. The cost of living also is important in here. If the UK voted to leave the EU, the resulting economic shock would put pressure on the value of the pound, which could risk higher prices and would damage living standards for the people of the country. And losing full access to the EU's single market would make exporting to Europe harder and would increase costs. Now, that's a very good point, because it is quite likely if Europe cuts us off, as it were, we cut ourselves off from Europe, will there be trade sanctions against the UK? Will they not wish to trade with us in that sense? So I don't quite know what's going to happen in regards to that. Travel abroad. Millions of UK citizens travel to Europe each year. It's been made easier and cheaper. EU reforms in the 1990s have seen a drop in fares by over 40% for lower cost flights. Mobile phone roaming charges are to be abolished across the EU, saving UK customers 38p a minute on calls. And also, UK citizens travelling in other European countries have the right to access free public health care, which is something they obviously benefit from in the UK, with the forms of the National Health Service. Some argue little would change if we left the EU, and help if I put my teeth in, but there are no guarantees UK customers would keep these benefits if we left. Okay, so what happens if we leave? Now, it says I've got a couple of pages left of this. Now, there is something that has happened. France has stated that if the Brexit goes ahead and we leave if we vote to leave the EU, they will, and they have prepared a lot of cruise ships off the coast of France, as at the very day that we vote to leave, they're going to put everyone who's at the Jungle, which is the migrant camp that is based at Calais, they're going to put them on there and they're going to send them to Britain. And everyone that comes through France is going to be sent to England immediately. That is a huge worry, and that was like a logistical nightmare that I wouldn't know where to begin to deal with. Also, we have seen that Spain has said that the very day that Britain leaves the EU, they are going to take Gibraltar back. How do you deal with that? And the best thing that also means that everyone is going to be just going for us anyway, in terms of the migrants coming across Europe. And they should, of course, be stopping in the first country they come to. That is not the case. They clearly are heading to the Scandinavian countries, Germany, France, and England as well. So, what happens if we leave? Besides those things that I've mentioned that have come up in the news over recent months, it says that voting to leave the EU would create years of uncertainty and economic disruption, and this would reduce investments and cost jobs. Without a doubt, that's certainly a statement. The government judges it would result in 10 years or more of uncertainty as the UK unpicks its relationship with the EU. Yeah, of course, if we vote to leave the EU, there is the situation where it's not going to be instant that we have left them. There's lots of things how we are intricately linked together, the trade deals and so on, that have to be pulled apart, which is not going to happen instantly. I would say it's going to take maybe as little as 5 years to start unwrapping some of those things. Some will be instant, some much more longer. So some would argue that we could strike a deal quickly with the EU because they would want access to our market. The government's judgment is that it could be much harder than that. Less than 8% of EU exports come to the UK, while 44% of UK exports go to the EU, and no country has managed to secure significant access to the single market without having the EU rules which have no real say and pay as the EU, except EU citizens working and living in their country. Now this is the big bone. This really is the big one. It's controlling immigration rather, and securing our borders. I do think the UK is strategically placed, and I say that in that very term. It's perhaps the only reason we saved in World War II and the previous wars, and the one reason why we've been so, as an industrial force over, in fact, creating the very modern world that we live in today, is that we have surrounding us a rather large body of water. We have the North Sea, and we have the English Channel, which perhaps just coming here, though of course we do now have the Euro Tunnel. So the UK is not part of the border-free zone. We control our own borders. That gives us a right to check everyone as they come in. They do not have the right just to walk in and there we go. The government has negotiated a deal to make our benefit system less of a draw for EU citizens, and EU migrants do not have access to benefits until they've worked for up to 4 years. The government has greater powers to take action against those who abuse the immigration system, and some would argue that leaving the EU would give us more freedom to limit immigration, but in turn would create economic benefits for this. But in turn, for economic benefits of action to the EU single market, countries such as Norway have to accept the right of all EU citizens to live and work in their country. This makes us safer, according to this leaflet. The EU membership means that UK police can use law enforcement intelligence from the other 27 EU countries. That's another thing, of course, is that massive police database. We would lose access to that, and of course that would mean we are more prone to terrorist attacks. Well, we also have access to fingerprint and DNA information. Just as it says here, the EU cooperation makes it easier to keep criminals and terrorists out of the UK. Since 2004, there's European arrest warrants, where over 1,000 suspects have faced justice in UK courts. Over 7,000 have been extradited. Benefits of EU membership. Let's quickly browse over this. The UK is part of the EU, a group of 28 countries that exist to promote economic security, peace and stability. I seem to think that the EU literally is in a case of identity crisis right now. He's not quite sure what it is. The EU operates as a single free trade market without taxes between borders. The UK has secured special status in that the UK has kept the pound, has not joined the euro, and has the ability to control its own borders. We have ensured that the UK powers cannot be transferred to the EU in the future without a referendum. You know, kudos to one thing, not of course in the current government, but other successive governments, that diplomats. That's some hard things to negotiate. I'm grateful that we have them, but I guess it's still the fact that we have a nice big body of water that stops them just walking across the field and being already here. The UK will keep full access to the single market. For every pound paid in tax, a little over 1p goes to the EU. The government judges that the UK gets back in opportunities, job creation and economic security from the EU, and far outweighs the cost. The opportunity for children as EU membership means your family have the right to work, study and live abroad in any of the other 27 countries, and it also guarantees you employment rights within those countries. The UK is a strong independent nation, and the EU membership magnifies the UK's ability to get its way on the issues we care about. And then it's a once in a generation decision. That is absolutely true. This vote has never happened before, and is likely never to happen again. So our government believes that we should stay in the European Union. So that's that one. Like I said, I had two other leaflets come through. It was the same day, hidden inside this bind to view. So what are your views on that? What are your views on the Tory view and the government view of staying in the EU? So are these two different leaflets? I don't actually know. No, they actually have two different addresses completely. So they are two different independent organisations. So this one is a A4 sheet. Let's have a quick browse. So it says here, UK and the European Union, the facts. It doesn't say who it is representing. This is Westminster Tower, so I guess it could be still the government. The UK and the European Union, the facts. On June 23rd, there'll be a vote to decide whether the UK should remain a member of the European Union or leave and take back its control. It's a big decision, and there will not be another chance to vote for years, potentially. And the EU has grown since we joined. It was only 9 member states. Now there are 28, and there are many countries considered for membership. They include Macedonia, Montenegro, Serbia and Turkey. When they join, they'll have the same rights as other member states. The EU's the UK's official EU budget is $350 million a week. That's about the same as building an NHS hospital every week. Not that that actually happens. We get less than half of this money back. We have no control over its spent. It doesn't say who's producing this. That's quite interesting. The EU law overrules UK law. There's a conflict between EU state law and so EU member states law and EU law, and then EU law trumps national law. That's quite a sentence, isn't it? It's a basic principle of EU membership of free movement. This means the British public cannot vote out politicians who make our laws. That's right, because the EU are actually unelected, Eurocrats as they call them. And they literally can make up laws for countries that they've never been part of and never voted for. The EU judges have already overruled British laws on issues such as counter-terrorism powers, immigration, VAT, prisoner voting, and the New Deal the government has negotiated can be overturned by the European Court after a referendum that is not legally binding. While we're in the EU, the UK isn't allowed to negotiate our own trade deals. This means we currently have no trade deals with key allies such as the USA, Australia, and New Zealand, or important growing economies such as India, China, and Brazil. Instead, we're making a deal which is best for the UK. We have to wait till the other 27 countries agree to it. Outside the EU, Britain would have an independent voice on the World Trade Organization. You don't have to be a member of the EU to trade with it, such as countries such as China already do and India currently do. Countries trade worldwide with the EU without being members of the EU. Switzerland is not a member of the EU, and it exports even more to the EU than we do. Big banks and multinationals think the EU is strong in their interests. Small and medium businesses think differently. Only 6% of UK firms support the EU. Yet all have to abide by EU regulations on their businesses. The European Union has changed enormously since in the UK, since it joined it in 1973 with the Maastricht Treaty. Back then it was called the Common Market. But over the last 43 years, the EU has grown to control more and more areas, but we no longer have anything to say or do in that, such as borders, public services, and whether prisoners should have the right to vote. The Euro means more and more decisions being made in Brussels and less in your own native countries, and the European Union is changing fast and keeps changing. The courts decide how much power it has over the EU member states. And this, again, it doesn't actually say who this is representative of, party-wise or anything. So I find this really interesting. It does have a free post address, rtsz underscore LUUAHKLR free post. Get to Westminster Tower, 3 Albert Embankment. Prepaid second class stamp here. They want us to send this off to them. Okay, so do you want to know more about the EU referendum? Please let them know. It says here, and we'll go from there. So that's that one. The other one talks about here, grassroots out. So this is a obviously they want us to leave the EU. This is being organised by Grassroots Out Limited, based in Wellingborough, Northamptonshire. And it says moisten and complete the form area marks. So basically they want us to send this back. Okay, and a postage stamp posted back to us. Oh, that's nice. So this company is free, second class. This company wants you to add us down. Okay. So we want to leave the European Union. Do you? If you want the United Kingdom to leave the European Union, you can give more than just a vote. It says, I think basically they're trying to gain support here. So I will, and it's got a number. There's 8 tick boxes that you can put in here by voting. That's what you're going to do for the UK to leave the EU. Deliver some leave campaigns locally. Put a poster during the referendum. Provide a lift to a polling station for the elderly and disabled. Help some door-to-door surveys of voters. Telephone voters to ask their opinions. And help organise fundraising activities locally, and to make a donation. So GO is a national cross-party grassroots campaign to leave the European Union. So every vote counts in a close race. Please show our support. Okay, let's have a quick look down here. Information you provide will only be used by this company. The data controller for this information is Richard Murphy, so we have a person here who is leading that data control. This information will be processed in accordance to the Data Protection Act. Okay. May be passed any EU referendum leave campaigns. If you don't want information, press the leave. Yeah, okay. Right, okay, so that's it. That literally, that's the 3 leaflets, really. So, I'm sorry if I bored you with the way I'm talking. I'm sorry if I went talking a little too fast. I wanted to get through this as quick as I could. But so what are your views? What are your thoughts? Do you want to stay in the EU? Do you want to leave? What's your reasons, or one way or the other? Is immigration what you fear? Is Islam taking over the European Union a big issue? Is the African migrants coming over the big issue? Do you feel that you are, being bullied by the European Union? Do you feel that we are unfairly treated in the European Union? What are your views? What are your thoughts? Please leave them below. Please share the video if you want to. I know it's a bit of a long one, but I really want to know your thoughts. Please leave your comments below, as I said. Give us a like, give us a subscribe if you want to. That's up to you, but thank you. This is me signing off very quickly. Again, kept it brief. My name is Christian Lander. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the world of the internet very soon.